Okay, third wine. So this is the Benede-Duivenshokrivier Chardonnay. I have to concentrate
Well
and
done.
say it very slowly because I get it wrong all the time. I just learnt the other name
Barra.
that you used initially, which was Benede-Duivenshokrivier.
Yes.
And then they've moved the S around, they've changed the first word. What's the story with this place? Where are we? Where is...
Okay, so first to just understand where we are. If you go onto the N2 and you drive past the Culloden turn-off and past the Figuersfontein end, past Willendam, you eventually get to Heidelberg, and then there's a turn-off towards Vermakelijkheid, just past Heidelberg, or just before Heidelberg. And then if you continue on that N2, you'll get Riversdale. Now, between Heidelberg, Riversdale, and Vermakelijkheid, which is on the coast, or closer to the coast, in that triangle, that's where you'll find these vineyards. And it's the Balea vineyards.
Okay.
The owners there are sheep and grain farmers, and then they have this bit of vineyard. And I've been going to Stilbaai since Vintners, which was my first one was 2009, but owned a house in Stilbaai in 2014. So for the last 10 years, I've been really interested in that area, and having spent a lot of time there, winters and summers, knowing what the temperatures do, how cold the winters actually get, and seeing soil structures, especially if you come down, realizing that this could be good viticultural potential. And then...
What was it about the soil structures that...
You could see limestone.
Okay.
Even if you drive down towards the river, you can see limestone. And we don't have that much around.
I mean, there's some in Robertson.
Yeah, and that's a warm climate.
Yeah,
so limestone, cool climate area, coastal, that must be some potential.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's lots of limestone in France, for example, in Burgundy
exactly.
and the Loire, but that's one of the differences to here.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
exactly. So that piqued my interest. And then obviously when Günther moved across, so Günther Schulz from the ex-Kleinert, he moved over to Balea, when was it? Around 2019, 2020?
19, I think,
Yeah. And then, I could approach him and ask for grapes because I knew of Balea. The previous winemaker, Abraham de Clarke, used to work there. Abraham and I actually used to study together, so this is also how I got to know of Balea before Günther. And then I couldn't reference what I saw in the vineyards, the grapes, to the wine at that stage because the Balea wines at that stage, they were not really on the map. They weren't really crafted that well. And then when Günther arrived, with his incredible viticultural background and winemaking background, I knew that firstly Balea is going to go up and it's going to get onto the map, but then perhaps I have access to grapes. So I contacted Günther and he was very willing to sell grapes to me, which was great. And so I started my first Chardonnay in 2020 was the first vintage. And previously I haven't made Chardonnay until, the last time I made Chardonnay was in 2004.
It's almost last century.
From Klein Constantia, which was not known for their Chardonnays at all. But it's by far the best grapes that I like in terms of healthiness. Like these grapes are absolutely perfect. They come sun-kissed in, they're yellow, perfect little grapes. There's very little, there's no rot in the grapes. It's just really well farmed. And obviously the weather plays along on that side. It's actually quite dry. We're going into almost Klein Karoo area. If you think, where we are, it's like on that side you've got the Langkloof and it's dry.
So it's only 10 kilometres from the ocean, but it's obviously, that's a long way in terms of having that sort of that wet weather come through.
Exactly, exactly. So grapes came in and I crush half of the grapes and I whole bunch half of the grapes. But both portions go to barrel and ferment in barrel. I use about 20 to 30% new oak. Do a lot of batonnage during primary fermenting. So this is where my batonnage really, where I play a lot with it. So during the peak of ferment, I'd start batonnaging and keep that lees in suspension. Even though your lees is in suspension due to ferment and obviously all the carbon dioxide, there is still slight sediment. So I keep fluffing that up the whole time. And then until about a month after ferment, I'll stir every day. And then I drop that temperature. Well, in fact, I drop the temperature of the barrel room as soon as ferment is stopped. Because the big thing that I do differently with the Chard is I don't let it go through mallow. For me, I love the acid. I love acid in a wine. Acid for me is almost everything in a wine, and the balance of acid. Acid is for me the evolution of a wine, where with mallow, you're almost bringing that evolution forward. You know.
What do you mean by evolution?
Like how the wine can evolve. You know, when you have acid, you have a better way.
So the acid determines the evolution.
Yes, it determines the evolution.
Okay, I'm with you.
Whereas with mallow, unless you've adjusted the acid, you're losing quite a lot of age on that wine. Mm-hmm. This is just my
ageability.
This is just my humble opinion.
Yeah.
And being from a coastal area and Chardonnay is very subtle. You know, it's really quite a subtle wine. So kind of needed to, and I wanted to express just that almost primary fruit without bringing in the mallow character. Mallow, I'm not against mallow at all, but mallow for me on these grapes it didn't make sense. I wanted that pure light expression and that kind of almost, there's this like saline character going through the wine, where I think mallow would have given it a whole different complexity, add complexity to it, but not what I wanted in the wine.
There's a beautiful elegance to this wine. It's very perfumed, got a nice sort of crystalline structure on the palate, very finely boned. Whereas obviously the first two wines have that extra extraction from the skins. You can feel this one has a real sort of lightness of touch. Not to say it's not intense, but it has this sort of brightness to it, and that acidity obviously plays along there as well. So yeah, really impressive. I mean, obviously I taste a lot of Chardonnays from South Africa, as to most of you, and this is a very different style as the quote-unquote normal. I mean, because of the lack of big, heavy richness, and not that all of them are like that, but I think this is a much more delicate and elegant example of Chardonnay, pushing through, and that's obviously what you've gone for. Yeah. I mean, it's much more sort of in line with your Chablis sort of style. Yeah. It's not that extreme, but it has this sort of nice yellow fruit, oyster shell, salinity on the edges there as well. It's really lovely, fine boned, beautiful texture as well. And you've managed to, I think, the lees beautifully as well. I mean, people get excited by the lees, and as you say, it can get a bit reductive sometimes. So people can get over enthusiastic with the batonnage, and it gets too creamy and too brioche. Whereas that takes away the primary character of the wine. But I think it's a really lovely example. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.